Hi everyone, now that we've created our DXF files in Fusion 360, we need to process them and get them ready for the laser to cut. So the laser has two settings. One, cut, and the other setting is engrave. So engrave is just like burning the surface to create the design in it. So let's get started. We're going to use Inkscape for that. So just do a search here for Inkscape, I-N-K-S, and it looks like this Inkscape app. We're just going to click open. When it opens, it's going to take you to this sort of weird screen here. I'm going to click on the quick setup icon, and you can choose the dark view or light view, and you can play around with these different settings. You can't hurt anything, feel free. I'm going to hit save here. Thanks. And then I'm going to do a new document. And this is what it looks like. So on the left-hand side here is the canvas. So this is to zoom in and out. I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm going to then move the mouse wheel up and down, roll it up and down to zoom in and out. It zooms where you're pointing. So if I point over here, it's going to zoom in over there. If I point it on the paper, it's going to zoom in on the paper. To move the paper around from side to side, just like in Fusion, you're going to hold down the mouse wheel, and you're going to move it left, right, up, and down. Without holding down control, the mouse wheel naturally moves you up and down in your drawing. So again, hold down the control button on the keyboard, then move the mouse wheel, and you'll zoom in and out. Excuse me. Now, this is the size of a piece of paper. We need to change this to be the size of the entire cutting bed of the laser. To do that, we're going to come up here to File, and then Document Properties. That'll bring you the Document Properties menu. And what we're going to do, come down here to Custom Size, and we're going to make sure it says millimeters here. And then we're going to change it to 600. Hit Tab to go to the next one. 300. That's the size of the cutting bed. The bed's actually a tiny bit bigger than that. So if you can fit everything on this new thing, it'll cut. So I'm going to hold down the mouse wheel like a button and then move it over so I can see the hole. This is my cutting bed. Anything I'm going to cut has to fit on here. All right. Next thing we need to do is bring in our DXF file from Fusion. So I'm going to come here and say File. And instead of Open, I'm going to come down here to Import. And I'm going to find it. So for me, it was in the Downloads folder. Downloads, Josh Haza, Plywood Panels. Find yours. It'll bring up this menu, and we're going to do a manual scale of 1.0. Because we designed it in millimeters, it's actually expecting millimeters, so that's why it's a 1.0 scale. We're going to click OK. We'll bring up the second menu, and we'll click OK again. All right, so there's our DXF file. I'm going to zoom out by holding the control key down and rolling the mouse wheel. And you can see that these parts are fairly big. That's the size of the laser's cutting bed, and these are pretty big compared to it, which makes sense. Our robot is fairly big. All right, so it looks pretty good. Now what we need to do is we need to change all of these lines from black, which is engrave. If we sent this to laser as it is, it would just engrave a line on there and they wouldn't be different separate parts. We need to change these into red for cut. All right, to do that, we're going to come over here to Object and come down to Fill and Stroke. That'll open up this property box here. And there's three things up here. There's Fill, there's Stroke Paint, and there's Stroke Style. Fill is the color on the inside. So if I do a flat color fill, you can see it fills it with black. Well, we don't want that. That would engrave it all the way across it would be a huge mess. So I'm going to put an X there to turn the fill off. Stroke refers to like a pen stroke or a brush stroke. It's the outside lines. So it's the actual color of the lines. That's why I want to change the color of. So I'm going to hit here for a flat color or a solid color. And then if I'm on one of these other settings, I'm going to go over to the RGB setting for the color. I'm going to grab the red and drag it all the way to the right. What I'm looking for is getting 25500. That's the red the laser uses to cut. If this says 254, the laser will not cut it. It'll skip it because it's not the right red color. So it's got to be 255 red, green 0, blue 0. All right. That done, we've got all of these are now cut lines. You can see they're all red now. If it didn't turn red, you just need to click on them and do that process over again. Next thing we need to do is we need to break these apart. You can see that this isn't going to fit onto the cutting bed. It's just too big. So I'm going to break them apart by using the command Control-Shift-G. I'm going to press it over and over again until at the bottom here it says no groups to ungroup in the selection. Once it says that, they're all fully ungrouped. So I can click off somewhere. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see what's going to happen. I'm going to try and grab this part and move it. So I'm going to grab it and move it. And you can see, oh no, right away the outside line moved, but the inside things didn't. That's not going to work well. I'm going to do Control-Z to undo that move. And now what I need to do is I need to group these objects back together again. So I'm going to drag a box around them. And now I've got all of them selected. And I'm going to do Control-G. So before, Control-Shift-G, ungroup stuff, Control-G, regroup stuff. So now you can see if I click off and I try and drag it around, now it's all stuck together as one part. I'm going to do that for each one of these. So bring a box around the whole thing and Control-G. Let me show you something real quick. Actually, if you miss the box around the whole thing, notice here I'm not quite around the left-hand side. If I let go, I don't actually get this outside piece involved. So I got to make sure that my box goes around every bit of it. And now I can Control-G and Control-G. I'm going to do that for all of the pieces because they all have those interior shapes in them. Okay, now they're all regrouped back together. And so I'm going to start putting them on the cutting bed. Now notice that this one's not going to fit. It's just too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tip it sideways. To do that, I've got these rotate left and rotate right, or clockwise and counterclockwise buttons. I'm going to rotate it counterclockwise like this. And now you can see it fits on there really nicely. Now to get it positioned in the top left corner, I'm going to change the X. This is the location. X is how far it is from the left. Y is how far it is from the top down. So I'm going to change the X to 1. And then come over here, click on the Y and change the Y to 1. And then click somewhere else. And now you can see this piece is really right in the corner. So it's 1 millimeter from the left side, 1 millimeter from the top. That's a fast way to position it really well into the corner. Now, I don't want to waste any plywood, so I'm going to see if I can get any more pieces on. So if I take one of these pieces, you can see, okay, that's not going to go that way. And if I rotate it, it's not going to help. So I'm going to leave that one off. This little piece will fit, though, so I'm going to come over here. Now, notice how when I get close, it snaps to it. Well, that can be a real nuisance for positioning stuff. So let's fix that. I'm going to come up here to Document Properties. And then I'm going to come here to Snap menu. And I'm going to turn this snap down from 20 to something really small like 2 or 3. Now when I grab it and move it, notice how it doesn't snap unless I get really, really close. Then it will snap to it. And that'll make it so you can snap, but you don't have to. So I'm going to place it about here. And I'm going to grab the other one and put it on here as well. That's all the pieces I can fit on. If I had some more other small pieces, I might put them in here somewhere. In fact, I don't know, nope, see, they won't fit in here. I think this is the only place they fit. Awesome, so those are those 3 pieces. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Now I'm going to move these other pieces that don't fit over here to the side, just off to the side somewhere. And then I'm going to zoom out and highlight a box around all of them. I'm going to do Control-X. What that does is it cuts it off the screen but saves it, and you can paste it back later. Now let's save this. So I'm going to say File, Save As, and you're going to save this on your ENR 7B or 3C or whatever thumb drive you have. I'm going to save mine in My Files. You don't have access to your Google Drive files. That's why you're not saving it in Google Drive on these computers. And I'm going to name this Vex Robots Cut Lines. And I'm going to say page 1 of, I think we're going to need 3 sheets of plywood for this. I'm pretty sure that's it. So Vex Robot Cut Lines, page 1 of 3. I'm going to hit save. All right, so that's page 1. So we need to do the rest of the pages now. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to come up here and go File, Save As. I'm going to change the page 1 to page 2. I'm going to hit Save. Now all of this is on page 1, so I can actually just highlight all of this, hit Delete, and then do Control V. And that should paste back on those parts that I cut earlier. So I need to position as many of these on the plywood as I can. So I'm going to grab it. And first thing I notice is, yep, I'm going to have to rotate it because it's too long. And that one can go there. And I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to rotate it and see if I can fit on there with it. That looks pretty good. And yeah, I don't think I can get any more on there if I rotate them. I don't think they would fit. Although maybe I can rotate this one this way, and maybe I do it like so. Yeah, that's probably using it up a little bit better. So what I'm going to end up with is a little bit of extra plywood here, a whole nice long piece. So I'm going to position this actually on the other side. So I'm going to say my Y is going to be 1 millimeter from the top. And I'm going to move this bottom one up here like this. I'm going to set the X to 1. So the left one I'm going to set to 1. At this point, you're just trying to figure out a good spacing. So you can see here that I'm going to zoom in so you can see what's going on. These two are overlapping. That's no good. So one way to do it, instead of dragging it with the mouse, you can use the arrow keys to move small amounts. So I'm going to move this one down, up a little bit. You want a little space in between them to give the laser some distance to cut. That looks pretty good right there. And I might move this one to the left a little bit. I'm just going to again use the arrow keys to move stuff around. And that looks pretty good. So in the end, I'm going to have this piece of plywood at the bottom left over. And that'll be super nice. All right, so that's the second piece. I don't think I can get a third one. Let's just try to see if we can get a third one on here somewhere. Ooh, we might be able to. Let's try that. Oh, that's pretty cool. We might be able to get that one right there. Yeah, let's do that. All right, now I can't get this one on for sure, so I'm going to Control X and cut it. And I'm going to do File, Save. That saves page 2 looking just like this. And now we're going to do File, Save As. And we're going to name this page 3 of 3 and hit Save. And of course, this is all page 2 stuff, so we're going to delete page 2 stuff. And then Control V to put that last one back on there. And I'm going to just rotate it around one side, and I'm actually rotate it twice like that. Awesome. I'm going to do the 1, 1 thing here. So X is 1, Y is 1, and File, Save. At this point, you've got your parts broken apart and they're ready to be cut. If you've got some time left in class, if you've gotten done a little sooner, the next video will show you how to take these and add designs and cool things to it so you can engrave on them and make your robot look extra kind of rad. If you don't have time for that, because we're running out of time for this part, you can just start cutting them right now. Awesome. Good luck.